I give the call to the honourable member for Fowler.
Mr. Speaker, thank you for welcoming me into this place. I feel blessed that I'm able to stand here today in the 47th Parliament of Australia. Before I begin, I would like to acknowledge the Ngunnawal people, the traditional custodians of the Canberra region. I pay my respects to the elders, past and emerging, and to all of Australia's Indigenous peoples. I also wish to pay my respects to the Gadigal people of the Darug Nation as the first inhabitants of the electorate of Fowler. My name is Dai Le. I'm an Australian with Vietnamese heritage and a refugee who escaped war-torn Vietnam with her family in April 1975 as a child. Tôi tên là Dai Le. Tôi là một người Úc gốc Việt và một người tị nạn, đã vượt biên với mẹ tôi và hai người em tôi sau khi giải phóng tháng 4 1975 khi tôi còn nhỏ. I'm humbled that my community has chosen me to represent them. It will be hard to express in words how grateful I am for this unbelievable opportunity and tremendous responsibility, but I will try. I never set out to be a politician. I only want to be a strong advocate for a community that has been neglected and abandoned by the major parties. Mr. Speaker, I started that journey nearly 14 years ago today, and I'm ready to make sure the people of Fowler have their voices heard. My electorate of Fowler is named for Elizabeth Lillian Maud Fowler MBE, 1887 to 1854, for her contribution to local government and in recognition of her role as the first woman mayor in Australia in 1938. She was a trailblazer in local public service, a woman ahead of her time. As someone who comes from and deeply believes in local government, I couldn't be more prouder to represent Fowler. Mr. Speaker, many of my colleagues in this chamber will attest that one of Australia's greatest Prime Ministers, the Honourable Gough Whitlam, proudly represented the people of Fowler as I do today. And I'm sure he would have agreed that while it is a privilege to represent the people of Fowler, we are not a privileged people. We are the forgotten people, and yet we are the backbone of Australia. Fowler is an amazingly rich area in culture, talent, people and landscape. We are one of the most culturally diverse electorates in the country. Our residents and families come from more than 130 different cultures around the world and have called Australia home. More than half the population, 52%, were born overseas, and almost 70% speak another language other than English. Nearly 10,000 refugees have been resettled in our region, in particular Fairfield City Council area, between 2012 and 2017, more than any other cities in Australia. Many come seeking opportunities, possibilities and freedom. We are a settlement city, and proudly so since the Second World War. But a settlement city has its own challenges. We have the third highest unemployment rate in the country at almost 10%, which is about 3 times the national average of 3.5%. Our median income is 20% less than the rest of the nation. Almost 77% of our population live in a family household and at least 20% in a lone household. 42% of our residents rent, compared to the New South Wales average of 32.6%. Our low socioeconomic profile eclipses our resilience, grit and determination. Our people and our families play a critical role in elevating Australia's economy. We are the backbone of the New South Wales economy, if not the country. This was evident during the COVID pandemic, when almost everything came to a halt because our tradies, truck drivers, retail workers, nurses, teachers, office workers were locked down. We weren't allowed to travel beyond the 5-kilometre radius from our homes. We were told to get travel permits We were forced to get tested every 3 days. We had helicopters flying around our area, as well as police on horseback and men in uniforms knocking on people's doors. While the intention was good, we are a city made of people who have fled tyrannical regimes and war zones like my own family, my own home country. The last time I looked, a government that takes away individuals' liberty to choose how they want to live, work and raise families was called a communist dictatorship, a political system that my family and I escaped from and many other refugees escaped from, especially the Vietnamese Australian community. But despite what has been thrown at us from mainstream media over the years, despite the lack of investment in our great city, despite the lack of resources to make lives better for our hard-working citizens, our people soldier on, placing their hopes, dreams on their children to study well, to do well, to live well and to give back to the community. Not only are we the most resilient, embracing and courageous community since COVID, we are the most vaccinated and the most locked down and the most tested. I'm so proud to have grown up in this amazing place among these amazing people. I have witnessed its growing pains over the years and now witnessing its maturity as a cohesive, embracing and accepting multicultural community. Our Fowler electorate stretches from the wonderful Western Sydney parklands covering the suburbs of Abbotsbury, Edensor Park, Greenfield Park, St John's Park, Prairie Wood, Bosley Park, where the great Marconi Club was born, to the west of the electorate were families in the suburbs of Bonnerick, Mount Pritchard, Cabramatta, Canleyvale, Canley Heights, Fairfield East, Villawood and Carramar and Lansvale enjoy the diversity of cultural cuisines, religious places of worship, as well as the Georges River, which connects it to the Chipping Norton Lakes. Mr Speaker, like many in the electorate of Fowler, mine is a refugee settlement story. I was 7 years old when Saigon fell during the Vietnam War in April 1975. My mother was forced to flee with my two younger sisters, escaping communism. It was a time of chaos and confusion. I remember running with my mother and two younger sisters, scrambling to make our way onto a boat and pushing through the cries and screams of women and children. I had no idea what was happening. All I can recall were the cries, the panic, the chaos, and the one moment on the boat when I turned around to look back at my birth country to try and comprehend what was happening and just saw a big black smoke in the distance. I remember the moment when I thought we would die, when a huge storm hit our boat. I remember my sister V and I hanging on to our dear life, while my mother held my other sister tightly in her arms with her rosary beads spraying. I remember being soaking wet, lying under the tarp as the ocean hit us and the rain poured down. I remember how my face almost hit the ocean as our boat rocked so hard from the storm. And I remember my mother's warning that I had to hold onto my sister in a plastic canister just in case the boat would tip over until we could find one another. Trying to peer through the tarp, all I could hear was the storm and was terrified we couldn't survive because none of us could swim. My mother kept praying, rosary beads in hand, as the boat continued to rock. The ocean was pitch dark, and all I could think of was that I was going to fall into this black abyss. I kept praying in my heart that should the boat tip over, that I would still hold on to my sister and I would still find my mother. The storm subsided the next morning, but everyone was exhausted. I remember seeing bodies lying on the boat like dead corpses. I remember the years in refugee camps, dreaming of being able to lie on a proper bed, to have a proper home, and to go to a proper school. I remember the moment when we were accepted to be resettled as refugees in Australia, known to many back in refugee camps as the island with the best education system in the world, and remembering as we stepped out of Kingsford Smith Airport, the feeling of gratitude and freedom. We were filled with hope as we looked out onto the horizons of endless possibilities. Australia, you welcomed my mother, my family, with open arms. You gave us comfort, food, and a warm bed to sleep in. I will never forget the love shown to us by Auntie Claudia and Don Smith, who helped my family integrate into the community, and their children, Kylie, Malia, and Matthew, who kindly shared their books, clothes, and toys with us. I know that Auntie Claudia is in the public gallery today with her daughter Kylie Williamson and her husband Neil Williamson. I want to thank them for their kind and generous heart, for being there for my mother and sisters as we struggled to rebuild our lives. There weren't any refugees or settlement services around to hold our hands back in those days. It was the kindness and support of people like Claudia and Don Smith and the St. Vincent de Paul Ladies Society who helped us embrace the Australian culture and way of life. I remember the Ferrers, who gave my mother her first job cleaning their house and helping us be settled in. Mr. Jim Ferrer has since passed, but he and his family was a migrant story from Italy, who came to Australia, worked hard to build his shoes business, and who later helped people like my mother. And to the Wars of Scottish ancestry, who introduced me to Anzac biscuits and made me feel like I belonged to this new country. This migration story belongs to all of us. It's our story, and we can all be proud to share it. I also want to take this opportunity to pay tribute and acknowledge all of the Australian servicemen and women who fought for our freedom in Vietnam and who continue to serve us today. So, after all that, how did I get to this place? I entered politics at the community level, fighting for a car park in Cabramatta in 2008, almost exactly 14 years ago to this day. I had just returned from a reporting trip with ABC's foreign correspondent when I heard the people at Cabramatta markets complaining about the decision by the then state member for Cabramatta for resigning soon after she lost her health ministry. The chatter in the markets was people had voted for her at every election, and now she cannot, and they complained that she couldn't even deliver a car park for them. After hearing my outrage, my husband suggested I consider being a voice for the community. With no links to political parties or mainstream politics at all, the idea seemed daunting. How could I, a simple ABC reporter back then, do such a thing? I had no idea what was needed to be the voice of the community of Cabramatta. I'll be honest, it was scary. In 2008, people of diverse backgrounds, and in particular women of colour and those like me, did not feature in mainstream public life. I had no one to turn to. I had no one to mentor me, nor to guide me on the journey I was about to take. But I took the leap of faith. I was so driven by the feeling of unfairness and how my community was treated as second-class citizens. The fact that my community wasn't given a car park when they had been crying out for one for years, and that people had to pay 50 cents to use the toilet. I advocated strongly for the car park in 2008, which was delivered a few years after following my election to the local council in 2012. I started my journey with one small step. As Lao Tzu said, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with one small step. For me, the decision to go into mainstream politics was easy, not because I knew anything about it. Rather, it was because I knew nothing about it. At the December 2021 election just last year, myself and the first independent mayor, Frank Carbone, joined forces to run an independent ticket for the election. While our team managed to win a small win in 2016, it was a very slim win with 250 votes. At last year, we won the majority, with 10 of our 13 councils elected. It was a very significant result, with the first popularly elected mayor with a 75% margin. It was against this background that we said something had to be done about the move to parachute a former Premier, a woman, to be our voice in Fowler. We believe that it was time for one of us with lived experience, who've grown up, who works, lives and spent most of our lives in our community fighting and standing up for us, to represent us, especially over the past couple of years during COVID and lockdown. Conversations started amongst our small team. Could we sit back and let our community be taken for granted again? The people of Fowler wanted and needed a representative who came from their community and who would never forget the personal challenges that they face every day, and who have walked in our shoes and have been through what we have been through, not just at election time, but every day. As a breast cancer survivor, I have experienced our amazing health system. I can say that in life and death situations, our public health system is probably the best in the world. It saved me and my mother, who's had 3 open-heart surgeries, but often it can fail the many other ordinary Australians for simple treatment and services. We have 2 hospitals in Fowler, one that is heavily resourced at Liverpool Hospital and the other hardly resourced at all at Fairfield Hospital. In 2019, I campaigned for Fairfield to get funding in order to have Wi-Fi, because the hospital doesn't have the electricity capacity load to enable Wi-Fi. At the start of this year, while attending one of our amazing cultural events, the Lunar New Year, I was approached by 2 young women who stopped to thank me for campaigning for the improvement to the hospital. They were both specialists and told me that because of my campaigning, they were able now to treat patients under the basements of the hospital because it now has air conditioning. As long as I'm in this House, I will continually ask that both federal and state governments reassesses its health funding allocations so that it is equally distributed to our hospitals. Liverpool Hospital, despite the funds, is also overstretched because people and cases are pushed there. As a result, staff are under-resourced, stressed, and people are not seen on time and get frustrated because of the lack of care and service. This government can do more for families and communities like mine in Fowler. We need funding restored to Fairfield Hospital so that it can cater to the ageing and culturally diverse population, so that it doesn't put pressure on the Liverpool health system. We have a large percentage of young people in Fowler. Many children of migrant and refugees are moving back into the area to be closer with their ageing parents, and there's more affordable housing for those who can afford it, and to set up businesses that allow them the flexibility to spend more time with their families. Fowler has formed in small business, 13,190 according to the recent ABS statistics for our division. Small business makes up 98% of all businesses in Fowler. While the government recently announced the increase in migration of 195,000 to assist with the lack of skill shortages in Australia, I asked the government to first look locally to address this skill shortage, because in my electorate of Fowler there's almost 10% unemployment. I would also like to ask the government to look at the reasoning why we have skill shortages. I know of qualified people who were forced out of a job because of the vaccine mandates. We need to rethink this and include them back into the workforce. We must learn to live with COVID. We also have migrants and refugees with professional qualifications who are now working in underqualified occupations. We must work to swiftly create pathways for recognition of their qualifications so that we can engage their skills in our community. And if we are to bring in more migrants, the government has the duty to ensure that there are immediate plans to build more housing, more public transport infrastructures, more local services to accommodate for this planned increase. Our community has seen the settlement of almost 10,000 refugees with no additional funds to hospitals, schools, waste services, roads maintenance, traineeships or jobs opportunities. While it might sound and feel good to bring more people, we must ensure that they are set up to succeed and to be included in community and provided with housing, education and other opportunities. We cannot simply increase migration and then let these new migrants to fend for themselves in a foreign country, leaving them feeling marginalised and demonised. It is the responsibility of government to ensure systems and plans are in place to enable a productive, cohesive and connected society. I want to see the Fowler community prosper. We have the people who are willing and ready to work. So we're looking to the future of technology and IT hubs in Fowler as part of the Three Cities plan. We want to be the bridge between business and diverse communities to build wealth for our communities and our country. Our electorate has produced some of the best and diverse talent in Australia. In sports, we have Mark Bosnich, Steve Smith and Michael Clark. In food, we have Luke and Pauline Nguyen, whose parents opened one of the first pho shops in Cabramatta, which is a beef noodle soup for the Vietnamese community. And Angie Hong, the founder of Cabramatta's landmark restaurant Tan Binh, and her son Dan, an Australian chef, restaurateur and television host of SBS Food, The Streets with Dan Hong. In the creative space, we have the talented Maria Tran, the first Asian Australian woman who started the female action film movement that challenges gender stereotypes. We must invest in our children. It's our job to plant the seeds of success today for a future Australia that we can all celebrate. I will work towards getting many of our local schools into permanent buildings. And nobody should have to go to school in years in demountables. And our education system should be ready technology-wise so that the young children can tap into the future of work. Is our educational system fit for the future of work? My son is currently studying second year at university, and he told me many students are given videos to watch as part of their lectures. There's hardly any student-lecturers interactions. Since COVID, many young people are finding that they're no longer connected to what's presented to them on a laptop. Young people must be supported as they struggle to study, to find work and to figure out their place in this fast-paced, social media-driven world that we're now living in. Increasing traineeships, apprenticeships, internships will encourage and provide the platform and resources for our youth to be innovative so that they can add value to solving some of the world's problems. We need funding to build facilities that will care for our elderly, especially those from culturally and linguistically diverse backgrounds, who are often forgotten. We need to plan for equitable, accessible and affordable health services for those with special needs and vulnerable. So I'm here to represent the families of Fowler, those who wake up early every morning, the working people, the people trying to juggle a mortgage and pay rent, or work in a factory, or run a family business, or while getting their young to be educated. I am their voice. We have often been misrepresented and misunderstood. But get to know us and you'll see we are more than a headline. We are so much more. I'm here to fight for resources, for facilities and for funds for my community. Fowler, you fought for me and stood up for me, and I will stand up for you, so that our children will not be forgotten and overlooked. As long as I have the honour to represent the Fowler community in this House, you will hear me calling out for the funding we need for our children, for our education and health and local services that we deserve. To my people, my community of Fowler, I wouldn't be standing here in this 47th Parliament without you. I'm here to serve you with integrity and transparency. I'm accountable to you. Know that I will fight for our rights to celebrate and promote our amazing cultural diversity that this country has afforded us. And I will also stand up to defend our freedom to express our different perspectives, thinking, and share our ideas with respect for each other. No one human being can be, think, and experience life like another, not even in a close-knit family. And know that of the 151 members of Parliament, we have achieved the most unique result. I can say with hand on my heart that you, the people, delivered me. Not any major parties, nor any funders. It's you, the community, and my family's mortgage. I would like to thank you from the bottom of my heart and the many people who have been on this mad journey with me for the past decade. Mr. Speaker, I'm standing alone in this chamber today, but on my journey to this place, I have been accompanied by many. I must thank all the people who have been with me on my journey for the past decade. Katrina Lay, Suli Lim, Ken Chapman, Julie Tagg, Jeff Davis, Charlie Lin, Andrew Rohan, Charbel Saliba, Raymond Pham, Thomas Dang, Leonard C., Bailey Wang, Anna Dung, Sung Brown, Wendy Chuin, Gwen Riley. And to my current team of council, Kevin Lam, Ugo Mavillo, Reni Barko, Milovan Karadzic. While we only met in recent years, you have given 150% at each election since we met. And the same to these community members, Ninos Yunan, Tiklat Romel, Monica Falco, Juliana Falco, Bao Nguyen, T. Ha, Samantha Boon, Julie Dang, Marco Mijatovic, Lynn Podetti, Jennifer Kao, Jackie Ashley, Anderson Chen, Pat Sergi, Letha and Holly Korn, Laith Achino, Samir Yusuf, Emmanuel Sada, Adam Sedene, Senilia Radovic. And to the numerous volunteers who travel from all across Australia to support our campaign, a huge and heartfelt thank you. Politics is a lonely journey, as many of you in this chamber would attest. Someone can be your closest ally one minute and your enemy the next. It changes like the flick of a switch. Finding someone to trust and work through the political labyrinth is not easy. There are trials and errors. I'm lucky to have found a great and trusted team in my councillor colleagues. But there's one person who has been on that political journey with me, fighting the enemies, as well as delivering for the community since we got on council. My councillor colleague, the Mayor of Fairfield, Frank Carbone. Mr Carbone's endorsement of me to the community at this May 2022 election played a key role in my success in Fowler. He has the support of many in our city and region. Thank you, Frank. To my family, my sisters, Vilay, Tui Vilay and JC Lay, and my mother, who never ever doubted me and have always been there for me. I'm sorry I've been an absent sister and daughter. My sister V and her husband, Alan Morris in particular, you've always been there, willing to help whenever I reach out, without complaints or criticisms. Thank you for your unconditional support, understanding and kindness, standing by me throughout my political journey since I began in 2008. Lastly, and certainly not least, my beautiful and loving family, the most important of all, my darling son, Ethan Lambert. Ethan started the campaign when he was about 5 years old, and at every election was there to help hand out his mother's how-to-vote cards. I love you to the moon and back. Thank you for allowing me to work for the community without demands and judgments. The same goes to my loving and supportive husband, Marcus Lambert. Thank you is not enough for all that you have done to enable me to pursue my public life and to be of service to the people of Fowler. I'm grateful that you have been willing to put our personal finances and took huge risks to enable me to reach this milestone. I know you have made huge personal sacrifices for the greater good of the community. The almost weekly and weeknights functions that I have to attend meant that you had to make your own dinner, look after the house and the family, which include our 2 dogs, Bella and Clancy. I'm grateful for your unwavering and unconditional support. Thank you for believing in me. Thank you for letting me be me, for igniting my passion and never ever trying to dim my light. I love you both so much. I began my journey in this place in the same way I began my life in public service, with hope, with passion and with relentless commitment to do what is right for the people who live in the electorate of Fowler. The people of Fowler are my people. Our story belongs to every Australian. Mr. Speaker, thank you for your time.